Okay, so today we have a few different things we'd like to talk to you about. I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of the ACLS Humanities ebook collection, and then talk a little bit about the transition from ACLS to Michigan Publishing, and then talk a little bit about the features of the collection on Fulcrum, our publishing platform. Then we'll transition to talking about current and future library engagement plans. We have some polling questions for you in that section as well. And then we'll wrap up with some information on the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation grant we recently received, as well as some thoughts and future directions for development that we're thinking about at Michigan Publishing. So to start, I'd just like to highlight some overview features of the ACLS Humanities ebook collection. It is a growing collection of over 5,000 academic works across the humanities and social sciences that facilitate a broader understanding of humanistic studies. And three key areas here that we'd like to highlight is that it's library friendly. And by that we mean there's central license that we operate under with Lyricist, who is our sales partner. The collection allows for unlimited multiple users. It's DRM free. We have Counter 5 compliant usage statistics. It's discoverable in OCLC, EBSCO, and ProQuest. And we make available free MARC records on our website, which are updated with the annual release that typically happens at the end of the summer and early fall, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. In terms of ebook options, the collection is available via an institutional subscription. I'll show some of these different features in the upcoming slides, but there are interactive table of contents and media lists available for books. We have stable, citable handles for all ACLS HEB titles and resources. There's open URL compliant, and there are downloadable PDF chapters available for the titles in the collection. We think that the Fulcrum platform really provides an enriched experience for this collection. So by that we mean there's an EPUB 3 reader that allows for reflowable text, and that is a little bit more mobile friendly and responsive on mobile devices. We have embedded audio, video, databases, images, and more for the select enhanced titles in the collection, optimized for mobile devices. And Fulcrum is an open source platform where the code is shared on GitHub. So we're working with our development team at the University of Michigan Library, as well as inviting others to contribute back to that code base. We wanted to share a nice image of our readership map here, just to show the impact and engagement that this collection has across the globe, especially given our current global pandemic. We know that a lot of folks have been turning to more ebooks and online resources. This readership map is available on our website, fulcrum.org/HEB. I will be sure to circulate these slides so that folks can easily click on this link listed underneath here. But we'll talk a little bit more about this kind of engagement materials that are available for libraries later on in the presentation. So we'd like to share our first poll, since I know many of you who have joined us today are subscribers to the ACLS collection. We'd like to know what about a collection like ACLS HEB matters to you most. And I will start this poll. Give folks a couple minutes or a couple seconds here to respond. We have supporting digital humanities scholarship, pricing and licensing, preservation commitment, content and subject areas, and collection development. Okay, so give it a couple more seconds. It looks like almost everyone has responded. Okay, and I'm going to end this poll. Oh, we still got a couple more coming in. Okay, I'm going to end this poll. So it looks like the major winner here is content and subject areas, followed by pricing and licensing, supporting digital humanities scholarship, collection development, and preservation commitment. So this is really helpful feedback for us, and this will come up in different ways throughout the presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing these results now. Thank you for your responses. So just a quick overview of the organization Michigan Publishing. It's the hub of scholarly publishing at the University of Michigan. It is a part of the university library, and it encompasses the University of Michigan Press, Michigan Publishing Services, which is our campus-based publishing department, and Deep Blue Repository, which is our institutional repository for data and documents. It's also the home of Fulcrum, the open source digital publishing platform that we've been developing with the help of 2 different Mellon Foundation grants over the past few years. And that is the platform on which ACLS HEB sits. And we also partner with Readership for the sale of ACLS HEB, as well as the University of Michigan Press ebook collection, which is another ebook collection that we host on Fulcrum. At Michigan Publishing, being situated in the library has positioned us really well, and I think we're very in tune to our community values, especially library values. And when we were really building Fulcrum, we really tried to keep this in mind when we were thinking through our design principles and values. And those 4 core values are accessibility, discoverability, durability, and flexibility. So we have a couple quick notes here about each of those values, but as we talk through the different features, I think it will become clear how those are incorporated into platform development and certainly into the collection. A little bit more on some of our values here. As I mentioned, Lyrasis is our sales partner. We have a single license negotiated with them. And we really strive to be very transparent with everything that we do, especially around this collection, especially given this recent transition. So with the pricing, we are very transparent about any changes that come there, and we've committed to a predictable increase every year. And we are working towards more transparency around how the collection is developed. So this last point here is something that really matters to us, and that's been even more important lately with the move for some to online resources given the pandemic. And that's our good faith commitment to libraries, early and continued access to support library decision-making around the collection. So folks who subscribe to the collection and maybe need the early access turned on immediately, or are trying to make a purchasing decision and would like continued access after the subscription maybe is up until they've been able to make that subscription. Those are really important things to us, and we try very hard to communicate openly with our libraries and make sure that we can do whatever we can to support their institution and their users. So as you all might have guessed, based on who's hosting and the presentation title, we are now the institutional home for the ACLS Humanities ebook collection. And previously, it was situated in ACLS, and I will talk a little bit more about our continued work with that organization. But first, I would like to talk a little bit about the partnership and how the relationship developed over the past 20 years almost. So in 1999, ACLS received Mellon Foundation funding to develop an online ebook collection that became ACLS HEB. 2002 was the official launch of the collection, and very soon after that, in 2005, ACLS HEB partnered with Michigan Publishing to be the technical host of the collection. Now that was initially on a different platform, but in 2018, we transitioned the collection to the Fulcrum platform. And as there were conversations about where to transfer the collection, and I'll talk about that on the next slide a little bit, In 2019, that decision was finalized to transition to Michigan Publishing. And most recently this year, we received another Mellon grant for ACLS HEB development on Fulcrum. And I will talk a little bit more about that later on. A little bit more about the actual transition. ACLS decided to focus its core work on the stewarding and representing of its member organizations and supporting scholarship in the humanities and social sciences. So after consultation with various stakeholders, including publishers, funders, librarians, it was decided that the ownership would be transferred to its longtime partner, Michigan Publishing. And we've been in conversations with folks at ACLS HEB and worked very closely with the staff at HEB in our transition, and we are very committed to maintaining the practices, the character, and the mission of the collection. And we will continue to partner with ACLS, and the collection will continue to be known as the ACLS Humanities eBook Collection. So now we'll transition into more of the features of the collection on Fulcrum. So as I mentioned, Fulcrum is the platform that we're developing at Michigan Publishing. As we started to build the platform, we didn't have as clear of a vision as to what would be kind of our sweet spot. And we've really discovered that collections is our strong suit, especially those that are that have enhanced digital content and with a focus on humanities and social science content. So that's really where we've been looking to develop, and we've really been looking to bring on more collections to the platform. So that's been a really kind of exciting focus for us. The platform itself is a web-based e-reader optimized for mobile devices that supports EPUB 3 and PDFs. As I mentioned earlier with our design principles and values, we really have focused on accessibility and have developed a public VPAT, which is available on our website. We have Counter 5 compliant usage statistics, and as I mentioned, unlimited simultaneous users, PDF chapter downloads, and free MARC records available. Through various conversations and different kind of surveys and interviews we've done with a lot of different stakeholders, including libraries, it's been really clear to us what's really important on developing a platform, and we've really taken that feedback into consideration, and we're very proud to be building something that really includes the voices of our community. And we have an agile development method, which means that we're kind of developing in shorter sprints, you know, based on the feedback that we're receiving and based on what we know is a true need for the platform. So the image on the right here is the ACLS Humanities eBook homepage on Fulcrum. And I just wanted to point out some of the ways to search the collection. On the top bar there, you'll be able to see the search works search bar, and that gives you the ability to search works across the collection. It is not currently an advanced search, so it's not a full text search. And we've been surveying a lot of different users to understand the need and desire for that kind of functionality. On the left side, you'll see different faceted searches that include open access. You can search by subject, author, publisher, and series. So these various series that you can just see listed out here, ACLS Fellows, publications, things like that, that's all detailed a little bit more on our website, but you have the ability to search by series there. And in the right-hand corner, kind of in the middle, you'll also have the ability to sort by the date added. You can alphabetize, you can change how many titles you see per page, you can do list view or kind of a grid view. So folks have a few different options in terms of searching the collection. This image here is what you'll see when you click into a title, and this is our ebook record. So you'll see it varies from book to book, but some books will have an abstract right underneath the title and the author. You'll see a citable link there underneath the subject. That is what we encourage folks to use. That's kind of what you can bookmark and know will be stable. Below, you'll see the table of contents, which you can click into, or you can go to those buttons on the right-hand side and click read, which will bring you to that place in the e-reader, or you can click download, where we're excited to offer PDF chapter downloads for the ACLS HEB titles, which has been something that our users have really gotten a lot of use of. So this is the Fulcrum e-reader. This is what you'll see when you click in here. It's mobile-friendly, refillable text and a responsive design. You have the option in the right-hand corner where you see the settings wheel to read it kind of page by page, or you can do kind of a continuous scroll view, as well as adjusting the text size. So readers have a few different options there in terms of accessibility. And there are different controls up in the top here, which allow you easy access to media, searching within the text, citing the work. So in this specific title, the 3 bars on the left would bring out the interactive kind of table of contents. So you can click through a different spot in the book very easily in the e-reader without having to exit. The resources tab for this particular book, if you click that, will bring you to the resources page, which I'll show you in a second, but you'll be able to see more images and resources from this book. And then the search within this text will be a full text search, and it will bring you to different points in the book with those search terms highlighted. So one of the great things about Fulcrum is the ability to really integrate rich media objects into titles. And more titles that are being selected for the collection have included different media elements that we've been able to post on Fulcrum here. So this is just an example of one image from the Lake Erie Fisherman book in the collection. And you can see that you have the ability to really kind of dig into this resource, whether that be scrolling around, zooming in, looking at the metadata on the right. You have the opportunity to look at the permissions, the stats, and that's, we'll show you that in a second, but that's just kind of a quick overview of the interaction with the specific object. You have the option to download it, and you can share it via social and scholarly communities. So this has been something that has really kind of set us apart in terms of the platform. So over here on the right, I just want to point out quickly that this is the stats graphic in the multimedia tabs that I just mentioned. But we quickly wanted to point out one of our really interactive texts from the ACLS Humanities ebook collection, and that is the second volume of the Aplantis series. And this is a title devoted to the archaeological discoveries made at the Villa A site at Aplantis in Italy. It's the second volume that we have in Fulcrum. It is open access. Our team worked really hard to get this in, as did the editors, but there are thousands of different images that folks can interact with, and that you can click into at different points in the book and click out so that you can see this, this more in-depth kind of vision of the really intricate archaeology sites. And just to say that, you know, Aplantis kind of kicked us off, but we had plans to work with different archaeology partners. Most recently, we've actually launched the Museum of Anthropological Archaeology, a University of Michigan museum. We've launched their publications in the University of Michigan Press ebook collection. And we recently launched another collection, the BAR digital collection. So these are really, really critical academic archaeology titles that we now host on the platform. And we've been developing a lot of features to support this kind of work, whether that be interactive maps or 3D models. So we're hoping that we'll be seeing more of that kind of content in the ACLS Humanities ebook collection as well. So now we're going to shift into chatting a little bit about the library engagement piece of the collection. So as I mentioned, my role really focuses on interacting with the libraries who subscribe to ACLS HEB. And it's a newer role. It hasn't even been a year yet. So we're still really thinking through a lot of our plans and trying to get feedback on what types of things work, don't work as well, what we can continue to improve. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight what we currently have available. Two of the resources on the right here. The first of which is our librarians page available on the ACLS HEB website. That is the top image. And it's linked later in this presentation, so I'll be sure to circulate the slides as well so everyone can have access to these links. And Linnell has kindly been sharing all of these links in the chat if you'd like to go there now. But this page has a lot of different technical information. It has our title lists. It has information about IP addresses, proxy servers, usage statistics. So this is kind of our home base on the website. It's where we make sure we maintain everything, more details about the collection, different series, blog posts, kinds of news and updates about the collection, and contact information. It is kind of the main spot. The image below it is our Confluence page, and that's just our Michigan kind of software that we use to maintain this page. But essentially that is kind of the nuts and bolts, like the technical details of the collection. And that will include much of the topics that you can see on the website there. We've made sure to make that information available for the Confluence page as well. And in terms of other product pages, we have the Lyricist product page is not necessarily as in-depth. It has a little bit more information about the pricing, you know, ability to contact them to get more information about a subscription. So that's kind of more, you know, the subscription step. But we also, obviously today are kicking off our webinar series. So we're going to be curious to hear what other types of webinars would be really helpful. Hopefully many of you received our first edition of the newsletter from Michigan Publishing just last week. And we're hoping to really kind of refine what we're hoping to share out in terms of updates on a very regular basis. So those are our main support resources that we're thinking about right now. We of course still are maintaining the Twitter account, and we are thinking through how we might better utilize other social media accounts as well. But those are kind of the main areas that we've been focusing on. And we do have a quick question about support resources. So I'm going to share another poll here. Okay, and that is the previous. So I'm going to go to the second question here. Okay, so in what manner do you prefer to consume support resources? Is it video content? Is it downloadable PDFs? The option to kind of browse online, you know, on the website, webinars? We're really curious to hear what's been most helpful or what folks prefer. Okay, so it looks like we're wrapping up here. I'll give folks just another second. Okay, I'm going to end this poll. Okay, so it looks like the majority of folks are maybe interested in browsing online, closely followed by having kind of a downloadable PDF user manual, which I know ACLS HEB had done in the past, followed by webinars and video content. And I'll share these results here so that everyone can see that. So that's really helpful for us to know as well, obviously, as we start to really spend a lot of time thinking about how we might best you know, share out this information about the collection. We want to make sure it's in a way that folks would like to consume. So thank you for that. So another really big interest area for us is engagement and usage. And I know this is something that really matters to a lot of the library community that we work with as well. So currently what we have available in terms of usage statistics are the Counter 5 compliant reports. which allow you to view different reports right on our page here, which is the top right image, and also download that in a CSV format. We also have in the bottom left corner here of the image side, the Google Analytics visualization that we have available on the website. So if folks go to fulcrum.org/HEB, you'll see underneath kind of the main page, you'll see the option to click on the link, Visualize Impact and Engagement. And that has both the Google Analytics page, which will really allow you to select your date range, and you can see where users are coming from, which sources are driving engagement, how many page views there have been, how many hits for a specific title. So that gives you a little bit more detail, which is great. And then we, of course, have the Readership Map, which we shared an image of at the beginning of the presentation. And so we'll be curious, especially as you know, more and more kind of comes out around open access reporting and usage for what folks will really want to be seeing. But for right now, this is what we're offering. And we've heard from folks about the counter reports and different questions they've had around that. So I will start our second poll because we would love to know more about your top priorities around usage as we start to develop more options in terms of a dashboard or, you know, different things like that. So I'm going to launch this poll now and give folks a minute here to go through your top priority, whether that be implementing a sushi API, which we understand is a requirement to be fully Counter 5 compliant. And I know has been something many folks have been asking about, which is a great question. Title-based usage statistics, we've heard a lot about this as well from folks. More specific engagement and impact statistics, like something like Google Analytics or Altmetric or dimensions badges on the titles, or more information about kind of cost per use or ROIs. Let's give folks a couple more seconds here. So I know that we have one question in the Q&A currently about ebook statistics. And the question is, are ebook stats comprehensive or per institution? And that's a great question. So currently with the Counter 5 report, that is per institution. And I know folks right now have been having some difficulty accessing that page because of, you know, difficulties accessing, you know, the VPNs or different campus IP addresses. It's been harder to get into that portal that's typically authenticated via your proxy or IP address. So on that page, it will be per your institution. But for the Google Analytics page, that's comprehensive. That is across the entire collection. And same with the Readership Map. That's a very, very, very broad overview of where folks are coming in from and how many hits have been happening in the previous week. So thank you for that question. And if there are more usage questions now, or we have time for questions coming up, that is great. So thank you for that poll. It looks like title-based usage statistics is kind of the winner by a landslide here, followed by cost per use, then sushi, and then the engagement impact statistics. So thank you for that feedback. That's really helpful for us. So I wanted to spend a couple minutes here talking about future directions for the collection. We announced a couple weeks ago that we had received $750,000 in support from the Mellon Foundation to re-envision the collection over the next 2 years on Fulcrum. And we're doing many things with that grant. But some particular focuses for libraries I think folks would find interesting is the improvement of the corpus search and browse. So like I mentioned earlier, right now, it's not a full text and advanced search from that main search bar on the main page. So that's something we're really looking into. And the first step there is various metadata enrichments. So we'll be spending a lot of time on that. We're really thinking through the selection process for titles to involve more diverse range of societies and scholars, and we'd like to be very transparent in that process. So we're looking forward to solidifying that and then being able to share out what that might look like for this next round of new titles, which will be released later this summer, early fall. For this year, we are kind of following the similar protocol that has been past years, but we're looking forward to next year's 2021's kind of rollout of a slightly different process. And the third piece here is more direct engagement with libraries to get some more feedback on future directions in partnership with Lyrasis. So I know some of their first steps will be issuing a survey to the subscribers and different kind of lists of contacts that we have to better understand a couple different areas that we're still solidifying. And I know that once we are able to start all joining each other in in-person conferences again, I know that the plan is to have some meetings and focus groups at different conferences in the next couple of years to get more feedback as well. And of course, this is what my role focuses on as well. So this will kind of be a constant throughout and beyond the grant, but we're excited to have this partnership with Lyrasis and have some more folks to really get as much feedback as possible. Other areas that we're thinking about are the pricing model. We want it to be very transparent and equitable and fair. So we're thinking through how that might change, excuse me, or stay the same in the coming years. We're thinking through the re-engagement with ACLS societies and what that might look like and how we might continue that. As I just mentioned, transparency around title recommendations and selections, and really kind of pushing the number of new titles that we release each year is a goal of ours as well. So I have one last poll here. I know this is a little broad, but hopefully you've learned something here today. And we're wondering if you feel that you have actionable next steps, whether that be kind of sharing feedback with us or taking this information to a colleague or, however you want to interpret it is fantastic. We'll also be sending out a quick survey with the recording. After we receive that link, I'll be sure to share that via email, and we welcome your feedback there as well. So it looks like, give folks a couple more seconds here to wrap up with the poll, and then we have a good amount of time for some questions. So feel free to use the chat or question and answer box for that. Okay, I'm gonna end this poll. Thank you everyone for participating. I'm glad this was helpful. Like I said, we'll be sharing out another survey later on as well. So I do want to take some time now for questions. We do have a good amount of time here, and of course, we don't like to push it too much to the hour, knowing how frequently everyone is on a Zoom call now. But we will take any questions that you have. So first question here, how far back do the usage statistics go? So that's a great question. And it's something that we recently clarified in our newsletter. So I can definitely recirculate that as well. So because the collection was previously on our different platform, DLXS, the usage statistics prior to the transition, so prior to August 1st, 2018, will be retrieved from a different portal. And I will be happy to share that information via email. So, so that it's a little bit clearer and so that you have the links to access that. But for usage from August 1st, 2018 and on, you will use the Fulcrum Counter Reports page. And I believe that Linnell shared a link to that, excuse me, in our chat box at some point during the presentation. And if not, I'd be happy to share that via email as well. Hopefully that answers that. I know folks lately have been going as far back as 2018, 2019, but everything from 2018 on is on Fulcrum. Our next question is about a university that is trying to get sushi analytics set up in Alma for our various vendors. Are you able to get this configured in Alma, and do we have to go through your website for Counter 5? That's a great question. Currently, you do have to go through our Counter Reports page on Fulcrum for our statistics. I have actually not yet discussed the possibility to get this configured in Alma with our development team. So this is something I will be sure to raise with them so that we can get more answers, because I know there are other ways that folks like to get that information, especially through their vendors. So that is something that we will share more about as we have more development plans laid out for that sushi piece. But currently it is only on our webpage. But again, if there are additional comments or questions about the sushi piece or different ways to access your analytics, we are happily taking feedback and questions on that. So that's a really great question. Thank you. Our next question here, are we considering pricing models other than subscription models? Subscriptions each year are becoming unsustainable. I think that is a great question. How the collection is set up, obviously we have different publishers contributing different titles. So we understand that it's a larger conversation with the different publishers that we're working with. We've heard this from other folks, and we understand that sometimes, you know, purchasing and owning that content is really important, and we understand that. So it is something that we are considering and talking through. I'm not sure how quickly we'll be able to implement that. But again, if there are other questions or comments on pricing models, we welcome that, because for this year we were keeping it the same throughout the transition as it had been in years past, in terms of kind of how it's tiered out. But we do welcome more feedback on that as we begin those conversations. The next question, is there a reader audio feature on HEB for visually impaired users? This is a great question. So we do have, we are working on a voluntary product accessibility template for the ACLS HEB collection specifically. Currently, the VPAT that we have on Fulcrum's accessibility page touches on the various collections, but it doesn't necessarily go into the depth that would be as helpful as possible for this specific collection. So we are working on a specific template for that. Because of the file formats of some of the HEB titles, given how old they are and whatnot, sometimes the audio feature isn't available for every title, but we are working on converting titles and trying to understand this as part of the grant and going forward so that all titles can be accessible on the platform. It's a great question. Next question here. Will the issue of decolonizing the curriculum be taken into serious account when selecting future titles to add to the collection? This is a great question. We have actually quite a few colleagues working on the development of the collection, as well as different societies collaborating with us on that as well. So we'll luckily have a lot of different stakeholders involved in this. We recognize this as a priority, and we will be taking that into account when selecting future titles, absolutely. We really value diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility at Michigan. It's a really big piece of our library, and being situated in that has been really helpful as a publishing organization, and we're thinking through it at our own press, as well as all the other presses that we're working with to collaborate on titles and acquiring new titles for the collection. So we will definitely be taking that into serious account, especially given recent events and in light of that as well. So thank you, that was a great question. So the next question, what % of titles have media? That's a great question. I don't know the specific number right off the top of my head. I would say majority of the titles at this point do not have media, given kind of the older nature of some of these titles. They are pretty traditional, print monographs that have been copied and now digitized. But we do have titles from the more recent batches and some of the humanities open book titles that do take advantage of our image capability. A lot of the titles that are enhanced have images. Some have different audio interviews. Atlantis Volume 1 and Volume 2 are definitely two of the biggest titles that take advantage of that media enrichment piece of the collection. But we are excited to see what other kinds of content can now be supported because of the feature development that we've had. So I think the next couple rounds we'll definitely start to see more digitally enhanced title. But I will say, okay, less than 1%. Thank you to my colleague who just plugged that into the chat here. But like I said, we are looking for opportunities to add more and working to enrich some of the older titles. So another question here, how often do you submit title files to discovery services? The title count of 5,400 plus is not reflected in ProQuest 360 KB, which means students cannot find your content. That's really helpful. Thank you for that update. So this is a process that we're working through. Our development team, one of our colleagues on the team works very closely with some of our discovery vendors on making sure that titles are properly kind of updated and ingested. So we're working on understanding the status of those relationships through this transition. But I know that as of today, the most recent round from this past fall was still being added to different services. So this could account for that slightly off number in that particular service. But we are planning to add more details about the status of the frequency of these updates and where things stand in different discovery layers on our Confluence page, which is where we'll implement a chart that just shows where we are with that. But that's a great question. And again, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, the next question. What exactly does the search box at the top of this page search through? So in terms of metadata, that would be handles, like that citable link, the title, the author. Like I mentioned, it is not a full text search, so it won't necessarily pull like keywords across the corpus like in that full text way. But those kind of main pieces of metadata, and if it's just one word, not a specific title, it will pull from that title. Excuse me. But again, we're working on a lot of metadata enrichment and cleanup in this grant and going forward. So we're hoping to have a more advanced search that can benefit users. The next question here. I found that we still had access to titles we shouldn't when spot checking the deleted records for downloaded. Okay. For checking the deleted records downloaded from the librarian portal last week. I've not deleted the records from our catalog because of this, maybe a tech blip. Okay, thank you for raising that. There were some titles that were removed that we have added to a title list on our ACLS HEB website on the For Librarians page. And we have heard of some folks who have run into this issue as well. So we do recommend, we have the completed and updated set of MARC records available on the website. And if you haven't updated since March, we recommend that you do since we've gone ahead and updated all of that. But we can certainly look into that as well. Again, sometimes it's helpful to hear from folks about what's been going on in the midst of this transition, because we're just learning some things that we maybe weren't previously aware of. So that's super helpful, and we'll be sure to look into that. Thank you. Now we have a couple minutes left here. Excuse me. Does anyone else have any questions? This has certainly been really helpful for us. We know, I certainly know what types of updates to include in the next newsletter. So that will be coming out in July, and that will be clarifying some of these more technical questions that you've been raising. So thank you. If there are no other questions, I'm happy to give you a few minutes of your afternoon back. And again, you are more than welcome to email me at any time. We have some links here about the collection, about where to access some of the open access titles if you don't currently subscribe, and information about pricing here. And again, I will circulate these slides. Otherwise, feel free to send me an email. I have my colleague Linnell White listed here as well, the Director of Sales, Marketing, and Outreach. We thank you all very much for joining us today. We really appreciate your support and your commitment to this collection. I hope that we'll be seeing more of you at upcoming webinars, and I'll be sure to circulate this recording and the link to these slides in an email, hopefully this afternoon or tomorrow. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. I'm going to stop the recording and end the webinar.